Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is the Great Six, and welcome to my video for Ufihna Shadow Speed Draw with Commentary. Let's get this party started. This is the second Tria-style artwork I'm posting for February. And I've been wanting to do the 90s anime style for a while. It was the first thing I've ever tried to emulate. When I first started doing digital art in high school, because at the time the biggest artistic influences I had were anime, and I've always been into that since it first premiered in America back when it was Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z and Digimon and Pokemon that was first aired. A lot of my early work really was trying to emulate that style, and that's part of the reason why I could never get shadows right until I really started doing digital art about a couple years ago. I mean, I kind of got the hang of it sometime around late high school and like early into college, but I was never really comfortable with putting a lot of shadow because of the anime style. Anyway, it took me a while to figure out the subject of this work because I just couldn't settle on something, and I think it took me a lot longer than necessary to realize I should be doing Ufihna again. I've been meaning to do her for a while, actually, because I love her. She's one of my favorite OCs, even though she has a relatively brief lifespan in comparison to my other OC characters, which have a more tangled and complicated lifetime. Anyway, Ufihna is my OC from the Shannara Chronicles. I'm not into the Shannara Chronicles. I just needed a world to dump something like her into. So I just happened to have watched like a couple episodes of Shannara Chronicles and kind of give up on the series afterwards. But the world was suitable enough for this character. Anyway, for anyone who isn't too familiar with who Ufihna is, she's an elfin artist in Arborlawn. That's the name, yeah, of the place in Shannara Chronicles. She is an elfin artist in Arborlawn, and she just happens upon a cursed paintbrush while she's in the market. And while the paintbrush elevates her talent and earns her status and fame, every night Ufihna is haunted with visions of this moonlit meadow. And every morning she tries to recreate what she sees in her dream. And eventually the vision of the moonlit meadow completely overtakes her life. She doesn't paint anything except that. She's obsessed with trying to complete this vision that has haunted her dreams. And eventually when she finally gets it right. Oh yeah, sorry. I just saw the part where I realized that there was a drastic difference in Ufihna's breast sizes. Anyway, when Ufihna finally gets the painting of the moonlit meadow right, she just climbs in and disappears. And what I like about Ufihna is that there really is no hubris to what happened to her. It really was just bad luck. She just happened to pick up, or she saw the wrong thing, you know? I thought about doing a background for this, but I later decided against it because I just felt like just doing the style of the 90s anime just with the character. I decided to just keep it simple because in all, the main thing I want to get right is executing the style on a character. So when I finally decided that Ufihna was going to be my subject, I wasn't sure what I was going to have her do. I didn't want it to be too similar to The Sound of Rain, where Ufihna is sitting, because I didn't want to have any works that are too similar to each other. And I kind of also didn't want her to just be standing there, so this is how we kind of get a vision, this piece of her walking. Perhaps she has, I like to think that she's walking somewhere and she feels something like the hair on the back of her neck stand up, you know, something that sets off some sort of I guess you would say danger sense, but it doesn't quite meet it doesn't quite get there because obviously of what happens to her later on, but she kind of senses it, but it doesn't completely coalesce into something. And she won't put it together. She'll dismiss it, this fleeting transverse feeling. I was also rather hesitant to consider a shadow, but I thought it was the best thing to, I didn't want to do a shadow because it felt too much like Hannibal Feast, where the shadow reflects the truth rather than the object or the subject that's actually casting the shadow. And like I said, I don't really like doing things that are too similar in my works. But after I kind of thought about it a while, I realized I really liked it because, you know, what's closer to you than your shadow, right? While I was doing the shading for this piece, it made me really think about how unrealistic the shadows were in anime. I did kind of add a bit more than I wanted because, as you can see in my reference pieces, even shadows are just like some sort of weirdly placed thing in anime. I was originally going to leave the dress rather unshaded, really just like shade just the under boob and the neck, and maybe like that one Ufihna's right arm that she has kind of pulled backwards as she's walking, and then just basically leave the dress relatively unshaded. But afterwards I'm just like, no, I kind of like it better because it really brings like the upper carriage of her body forward, and it really hints at what's happening rather than just like this flat expanse of color. Those kinds of things always make me really nervous, and it makes me want to add more color. I found myself like trying to add layers and trying to do the gradient wash that I'm currently used to doing now, rather than trying to stick with the more simplistic 90s anime style. And a big thank you to Tamakid for making the 80s anime tutorial, which I used to kind of really set the tone of the style. I use a older version of Photoshop, so it didn't really apply to me, but it gave me more than enough to figure out what I needed to do. So when I tried to do Ufihna's shadow, I originally wanted like this black and white kind of deal. I mean, not this black and white, this very rigid shadow. And then you see that I kind of toyed around with, maybe I'll just expand it, because I kind of liked that for a bit, where like it starts off looking like Ufihna and then it kind of expands out into whatever sort of entity that inhabits the paintbrush. I didn't really like that. And then later on, I decided to do this, where you have like this sort of like writhing mass, is jagged kind of deal that to me, it kind of gives the effect that something is getting closer to her, because you see like it gets kind of far away and then like it's slowly creeping up on her. And I really like that towards the back part. You see that the silhouettes of the plants and oh yeah, there's the tutorial. The silhouettes of like the plants and the meadow and the grass sort of rising up, almost seeming like it's insidiously stalking her. So I'm really happy with how that turned out. And I really wanted that shadow to be just like pitch black. I was considering like maybe I'll make it like a little gradient or something. I'm like, no, let's keep it like this striking pitch black nature. And then there I am like trying to play with some of the blending. That's what Tamakid's tutorial was suggesting. I couldn't really figure it out because my version of Photoshop is is Photoshop 7, but I think it all worked out in the end. I'm really happy with how it turned out. Thank you all so much for watching and listening to this. You can view Ufihna's shadow on my DeviantArt page. Don't forget to check out my other social media links and my commission information down in the description below. And I will see you in the next video.